Hey, welcome back to the channel. Another little episode here. Today we've got a little Italian gun, a little Beretta, the Beretta Silver Hawk. There are two editions of the Silver Hawk, really. The current one, which was debuted in 1999, but this is the earlier gun. This is a 1959 vintage Beretta Silver Hawk. It's a very different gun, different internally, different method of operation. The only thing similar is that they're both side-by-side shotguns, and they both bear that same model name. So talk a little bit about it, and then we're going to open it up and show you what we look for and how we would evaluate this particular shotgun. Of course, Beretta has been around for literally centuries. On their website, they go back to the 1500s, where they were making component parts for various arquebus type firearms of the time. And even here engraved on the shotgun itself, it says established 1690, talking about Beretta. So one of the oldest, if not the oldest, firearms manufacturer still around. And in fact, even today, the CEO of the company, last name is Beretta. So it's been a pretty closely held company, unlike most other companies like Browning and Winchester, Remington, who became corporate entities and not family owned in any way for several years now. But this little gun, 1959, so we'll talk a bit about the importation of these guns. Prior to I think it was 77. 77 is when Beretta opened Beretta USA there in Maryland and established their own import outlet, if you will, into the States. Prior to that, they had different other companies that were importers of the Beretta brand. Now, obviously, Beretta was producing guns well all throughout the 19th or 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, what I'm struggling to say. But there for a brief period of time in the 30s and 40s, they weren't exactly exporting anything to the United States. But after World War II, they got in the business of refurbishing M1 Garand rifles into the BM59 and various other things, and got back into the sporting arms line. And a company in 1952 called Galef and Sons, G-A-L-E-F, Galef and Sons, of all places, New York, in New York City, became the importer for Beretta firearms. They were importing the pistols, they were importing the shotguns. And interestingly enough, they're also the importer for BSA, the English or British sporting arms, also were brought in through Galef. So they're in New York City starting in 52, up through the early 60s, and then Beretta awarded or started being imported by the Garcia Corporation in another unlikely place, Washington, D.C. So it was kind of a weird thing to think about guns being imported into New York City or Washington, D.C., but certainly were at the time. Now, remember, this is before 1968, so before the Gun Control Act of 1968 was passed, so you could actually order the gun from print advertisement, from catalog, send off a check, and the gun would show up at your door. There were federal firearms license dealers, there were records kept, but not like they are today. But they obviously, things were very, very different. So this particular gun, 1959, could have been bought in a store, could have been bought by catalog, it's hard to tell. So where did the gun come from? Well, they're all made in Italy, these shotguns, but they're not called the Silver Hawk in Italy. This is the model 409. It was the official model designation by Beretta. But what Galef did, the importer, is he looked at the gun, very European designed gun, different stock dimensions, had a splinter forend, just didn't really appeal to what he thought a U.S. buyer of the time, the 50s, would go for. Remember, a lot of things were happening. Weatherby had his style of rifles coming out. There was a lot of, I guess, over the top, if you want to put it that way, design features going into American product, whether it was cars or electronics or guns or whatever. So he said, we got to do something different. Let's put a beaver tail forend on it. Let's put a gloss lacquer finish on it, and let's call it something. So the name Silver Hawk, as well as the rest of the model names that were known for Berettas at the time, like the Jaguar pistol and the Minx pistol and the Bobcat pistol, the Silver Snipe over and under, those are all names that were coined by Galef, the importer, and trademarked, copyrighted, if you will, by Galef, the importer. So it was a very Americanized platform. The gun was available overseas as the 409 in the European configuration, sold throughout the continent of Europe. But this is how it was imported into the United States with this beaver tail forend. So, and it'll say Silver Hawk on the bottom here with this engraving. There's a little word Silver Hawk engraved in there. So how would we know it's a 409? Because on the European continent, they had the 409, the 410, the 411, and they differed pretty much in how engraved they were, the quality of the wood, things of that nature. Whether it's stamped on the gun, but not where you think it would be. We'll pop it apart here in just a second. But the configuration of this little gun is a little different than what you would normally see on a Beretta Silver Hawk of the time. The typical gun was 28-inch barrels, choked full and modified. These are fixed chokes. They didn't have screw-in choke tubes in 1959, so they were fixed chokes. This particular gun is a 26-inch barrel choke, modified and improved cylinder. We'll show you the choke markings on the underside of the barrels. So it's designed more of a upland bird gun, if you will, quail and dove. And on the shooter's market anyway, they tend to bring a little bit more money than the more tightly choked guns. So let's take a look at the gun externally, then we'll pop it apart. So let's make sure we're clear. So we have a typical box lock action here. It's a variant of the Anson-Dealey box lock action, like most box lock shotguns are. But we have the addition of this greener crossbolt that you see coming out here. It's a greener style crossbolt, and that crossbolt is what engages this hole here in the top rib, if you will, of the barrel. So when the barrels are closed, that crossbolt locks through there to lock the action closed. It's very secure. It is very rare to have one of these guns shoot loose or even get loose. And in fact, there's plenty of these guns that are still in service today. They're very robust. They're very mechanically well made, and they're very serviceable today, and there's quite a few of them in the field. They're not terribly uncommon, but I thought that it was an interesting gun due to the 1959 vintage and the difference between that and the European version. So we have a gloss finish, we have a composite or plastic butt plate here. The gun's marked Beretta everywhere. Beretta back here, Beretta on both sides of the barrel. Even on the water table, you'll see where it's going to say Beretta. So the gun was available in two configurations. One was a traditional double trigger gun with one trigger firing each barrel, or this gun here, which is a single trigger, but it is non-selective. In other words, unlike over and unders and whatnot today, this is only a safety. There's no selector switch here at all. This gun will always fire the right barrel first. The right barrel is the more open choked, improved cylinder, modified. So when you pull the trigger on the gun, fires the right barrel. This gun has an inertia block in the action here, so it requires the recoil of that first shot to reset the action to fire the second shot. So that still happens today. Browning Satori's most Browning Satori's are set up that way. The 725 is a mechanical trigger. Beretta 686s are a mechanical trigger. But this is an inertia block gun. So one thing you have to watch for on these guns is if that is gummed up or otherwise dirty or fouled, then sometimes the gun won't reset. It's a relatively simple matter of pulling the stock, cleaning out that inertia block system, and the gun is restored to function again. So if you were to have a bad strike, or remember, shot shells in 1959, they were just starting plastic shot shells. There were a lot of paper shot shells still out there, high brass or low brass. And that's really only the time that makes a difference, is on a paper shot shell. But if you had a bad round and you had click, then you had to either open the gun, reload the right barrel, close the gun again, and then you're on the right barrel again. Or you could simulate the recoil by making that inertia block move on the inside by slapping it back here, and you'd be good to go for that other barrel. So Interesting little thing, and that's true today on recoil operated or inertia block operated double shotguns, whether they're over and under or side by side. So let's take a look here on the bottom. You see the engraving, and it's got some. Nobody's really ever figured out what bird that is. So if you guys know, let me know, because I certainly don't. It's been called everything from a. Obviously, it's been called a hawk. But some people even call it a pregnant pigeon, so I'm not sure where that comes from. But be that as it may, Silver Hawk is written on here. That is the American guns designed for the American market. The European guns were not marked as such. So Galef had a good idea with that, because Americans wanted names on their models. I mean, Camaro, Mustang in the car world, and Silver Hawk, Silver Snipe. In the Remington line, you had the Woodsmaster, the Fieldmaster. So it was a thing, and Galef had that marketing skill to recognize that and to make it go across. And Beretta actually took note of that, because the 686 over and under, the current production guns, Silver Pigeon 2, Silver Pigeon 3, and then they reintroduced a side-by-side called the Silver Hawk, like we talked about. So that started with Galef back in the 50s. So interesting little bit there. The fore end is secured to this gun with a roller lock. It's kind of an unusual locking mechanism. The Silver Snipe over and under has a similar lock for the fore end. So to open it, you just roll this lock back, remove the fore end, and let's take a look in here. So we have the serial number of the shotgun, which is going to be on the water table. And we'll open this up here in just a second. But the serial number carries over to the fore end iron, and is also the last 4 digits stamped in the wood. So when you're evaluating one of these shotguns, you want to look and make sure that the serial number that we're about to show you here, and in fact, we'll go ahead and pop it loose. So we have the serial number here, matches the serial number here, matches the last 4 digits of the serial number here, matches the serial number here. So the gun matches all the way around. It's all original stuff. Nobody's been messing with it or swapping parts out or anything like that. So we're comfortable with that. So here's how we know it's a 409. Beretta stamps it in the inside of one of the channels on the underside of the fore end. So we have the 409 in here. So we know it's a 409 based Silver Hawk. They virtually almost all were. It'd be unusual to have anything else stamped in there, to be quite honest with you, but look for that to make sure. The markings here on the water table, we have the various proof marks. We have the 12 in a circle indicating the gauge of the shotgun. We have the various inspection and proofing marks on the receiver. P Beretta, once again, it's stamped all over the gun. It's right here on the water table itself. So carrying over to the underside of the fore end, we have additional proof stamping here. The choke markings, the 2 stars indicating the modified choke on this left barrel, and the 3 stars indicating the improved cylinder choke on the right barrel. Beretta yet again on both sides. Beretta yet again on both sides here and made in Italy. But how we date this shotgun is the little XB, and I've lost it again. There's a little Roman, there it is right there. This little XB right here on the water table is the proof dating. And there's charts. You use your Google machine to look on the internet and come up with the Italian date code stampings, and there's a chart. XB is 1959, so it's marked on Italian pistols, Italian rifles, Italian shotguns. It's marked in various places on various guns. I don't know that there's one hard and fast rule that says it's in one given place, but on this gun we find it here. So XB is 1959, that's how we dated the entire unit. So the gun has extractors, not ejectors. There's no ejector hammer, so it's just a simple extractor gun. The bores on this gun are perfect, so it's just an excellent gun. These are all more proof markings, and there's choke constrictions on here as well in millimeters. So it gives you the bore diameter in millimeters, and you would subtract that marked bore diameter from the millimeter bore diameter of 12 gauge and find out what the actual constriction is, and it would correspond to modified and improved cylinders. So the guns are marked all over the place, which is a good thing. So it kind of will tell you a little bit of a story about the gun anyway. So when we look at one of these guns and evaluate it to buy it, we always go back to that three-legged triangle that we've talked about of originality, scarcity, and condition, right? So we're confident this gun is original. The barrels were hot blued from the factory, and the bluing is there. There's no indication that it's been polished after the fact. Everything is marked as it should be. Everything is strong. This is original lacquer finish. We have a bit of a boo-boo here, but it's really shallow, and that will probably finish, take some additional finish or additional stain nicely, and at least mask it a little bit to where it's more presentable. We don't try to cover anything up, but we try to make it a little bit more presentable. This is a commonly lost piece on these guns, this little pistol grip cap. On the over and under, the silver snipe, on the bottom of the fore-end, they had a medallion set in here with an actual little silver snipe engraved, and that's typically lost, and they just don't exist anymore. You can't find those, so that does detract. The Silver Hawk did not have that. So we're also going to look very carefully at how these screw heads are configured. So if you notice, the screw heads on this gun have very, very fine slots, and it becomes, as soon as somebody puts a Stanley screwdriver to this, or some kind of carpenter or mechanic screwdriver to a slot like this, it's going to booger it up, and you're going to know that somebody's been trying to take this gun apart that shouldn't have. But if you'll also notice, we have these screw slots are indexed, so the slots are in line. So I'm confident that nobody really has been trying to get into this gun that shouldn't. So that makes me happy. It makes me believe that we're a pretty solid gun inside and out. So mechanically, the gun is fine. So we deal with originality. We believe the gun's original. The gun is not particularly scarce. They made quite a few. They imported quite a few on into the early 60s, and then Garcia took over. But it's a little scarcer in configuration. You have this single trigger, which was a slight upgrade in cost. Whether it's more functional or not than double triggers, that's arguable because it's not selective. But the 26-inch barrels, relatively open chokes, does help it quite a bit as far as valuation goes. So scarcity, mildly so, not terribly. And then condition. So when we look at condition, mechanically we're fine. The bores in this gun are excellent. They're not chrome lined, so they do require some care, and this gun's been well taken care of, and it's clean on the inside. It could use a bore snake put through it, but other than that, they're not pitted or anything. Our wood's not cracked. We have a little bit of a little compression issue right here where my fingernail is. It doesn't really detract much from the gun. It's not going to affect the shootability of the gun. It doesn't look like it's chipped out or it's going to chip out, so we're pretty comfortable with that. We have this boo-boo right here, but in this one here, which is similar, looks like just a scratch in the lacquer. We're not chipped out here. That's a big problem on these guns, or on any shotgun that has just this plastic butt plate. So we're not chipped out at the toe at all. So we're pretty happy with that. The checkering is in good shape. It's a little worn down, but it's 1959. I'd be a little worn down too. I'm not much younger than this shotgun, but I'm a little worn down myself. So all in all, it's an excellent little bird gun. The neat thing about these guns is I don't know anybody that collects Silver Hawk shotguns or Beretta shotguns from the 50s. But it's a good opportunity to get a good, usable shotgun. And on this gun, you should be able to get into a 409 Silver Hawk comfortably under $1,000. Now, because of the community guideline thing, on all this social media platform, we're not going to talk about how much this gun is or whether this gun's even for sale or not. It's going to be a big mystery. But you should be able to get into a 409 Silver Hawk for under $1,000. Now, they did make it in 16 and 20 gauge also. The smaller the gauge, the more the money on this gun. And a 20 gauge short barreled open choke gun would be probably bumping that $1,000 bill. Some people ask a ton more for them. I don't know if they get them or not, but The thing about used guns, or the thing about used anything, is the gun's worth exactly what somebody will pay for it, and not a penny more, not a penny less. So as long as both sides are happy with the deal, then it's a good deal, right? So, but that said, these typically in 12 gauge this configuration should trade for somewhere below $1,000. Now, it's going to be hard to find any decent double barrel shotgun, side-by-side shotgun, for a $1,000 bill these days. So it does represent a good value. If you want a good shooter, there's no reason not to take this gun out and shoot it. There's no reason not to take this gun out and hunt it. If you like hunting dove or quail with side-by-side shotguns, and there's just something, to me anyway, my personal opinion for what that's worth, is I think it's cool. I mean, I hunt, the last time I hunted dove, I did it with a Parker side-by-side. So to me, that's just a cool way to do it. I mean, yes, I have access to whatever, A300s, A400s, Brownings, whatever, but I like to pick up the old side-by-side and shoot those. It just kind of takes me back to where people actually dressed to go hunting, and it was a bit of an event. So time's gone by, if you will, is kind of what we're talking about. But I could go on about that forever, and that's not really what we want to do here. But anyway, the Beretta 409 Silver Hawk, not the 470, not the 471. That's a completely different shotgun. Those shotguns will cost you well in excess of the $1,000 bill when you find them. But this is different. This is a gun from decades gone by. Simple box lock shotgun, robust, tough as nails. But there's one thing that I was a little bit remiss in talking about, is when the gun is locked up. A lot of people make, let's put this back on here so I can close it correctly. All right, when the gun is closed on most double barrel shotguns, people pay a lot of attention to the position of this lever. They want the lever to be right of center or no more than dead center. They don't want it to be left of center. That's not as big a deal with the Greener crossbolt gun as it is with some of the other style of top latch guns, because the further the lever faces this way, the more wear there is to the locking surface here on certain styles of top lever shotguns. So this gun, even though it's not particularly pertinent to this style of closing, you can see that the lever is dead nuts on this one. So I'm perfectly comfortable selling this gun as a shooter, or calling this gun a shooter. I'm not confirming or denying that this gun is for sale. That would be a violation of community guidelines, and we certainly don't want to do that. So anyway, the Beretta 409 Silver Hawk, 1959, from Italy. A lot of good stuff happening in the 50s in Italy. Sophia Loren was one, but I can go on about that for a while too. So, as always, if you enjoy the content that we're doing here, folks, please subscribe to the channel. We need subscribers. We like to see you guys watching. We try to put stuff out every week as we get stuff in that's pretty cool. If there's a make and model that you want us to look at and do something on, please drop that in the comments. We'll try to get it done if we can get our hands on a representative example. And as always, we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.